Hello, everybody. Uh, Welcome to the sixth edition of the International Summit of India Satcom, and this is the last session on rural broadband, being a very key aspect of our overall theme, which is satellite broadband, the new frontier. We have today a very illustrious panel chaired by no less than Mr. Shakya, DDG satellite from the Department of Telecommunications, the policy maker and licensor behind the show. Uh, you would all appreciate that with for ubiquitous broadband, one needs to be everywhere, not just in semi-urban areas. India, which is 70% rural, has a heavy requirement for coverage, broadband availability, connectivity in all the rural areas, which means very far-flung, very difficult to access places. And we have a long way to go. A very creditable job has been done by the telcos for connectivity in the urban and semi-urban areas. In rural areas, there are huge challenges because, as you would appreciate, rolling out fiber, digging, getting rights of way, going through very hostile terrain is indeed a big challenge. And to reach our 600,000 villages, which has been tasked by our Honorable Prime Minister to be done in ASAP, we need to get all our act together, all our technologies together. And this is where we look to Satcom to be our messiah, our savior who will take us, because it doesn't need any right of way, it doesn't need any of those challenges of infrastructure. On tap, it is available. If the policy and regulation facilitate it, it's available on tap. Because there are international satellites going over India with capacity going waste over India. So there are ways, and some time ago, the first chairman of our Satcom committee in BIF, Mr. Avi Goodgold, showed us how, in a very precise comparison of apple to apple, Indian costs, satellite bandwidth costs, are several fold that of what is available in the West, and how, if, with certain actions taken, they can be made equally competitive. Equally competitive means it will be far cheaper in the rural area, because terrestrial, as you go rural, the cost of broadband goes up exponentially. For terrestrial, it remains. For satellite, it remains the same. So actually, satellite broadband will be the cheaper option for rural India, which is very price sensitive, needs affordable broadband. And we are reputed for lowest tariffs and highest coverage even in mobile. So that being the case, this is a very important session, and we got 5 eminent speakers who are going to talk to you all, and I'm sure we'll get a lot of wisdom from them. And most important, we have got our Mr. Shakya from the Department of Telecommunications, who is going to be chairing this. Without much ado, I would like to hand over to Mr. Shakya for him to give his introductory. But just a couple of words about him. Mr. Shakya is a personal friend of mine for many years. I know him and I admire him. He's been very practical and progressive in his outlook for growth. He is an ITS officer of the 1988 batch and has over 30 years experience in handling various aspects of telecom. He has earlier served as senior advisor to the ICT Authority, Government of Mauritius, and as director in various functions in DOT, such as Internet Monitoring System, Security, Vigilance, and Telecom Monitoring, Quality Assurance, and Term. You name it, he has been there and he's had that experience. So he's indeed got a very rich experience, and he now comes to help to deliver satellite broadband. I look forward to your opening address, Mr. Shakya. I have great pleasure in welcoming you and handing over to you to deliver the talk. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Ramachandranji. Let me put on record the appreciation on my personal behalf and on the behalf of the Department of Telecommunication for arranging such a knowledgeable, very timely, and the need-based requirements to be considered when the entire policy framework on the satellite communication is evolving. So thanks a lot. Normally this exercise is being done by the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India or by the Department of Telecommunication itself to collect the inputs from the various stakeholders. So sincere thanks on behalf of the government to the Broadband India Forum providing this opportunity to be with all of you, to listen all of you, and then based on your needs, moderate the policies in that direction so we can really have the fruitful results coming from the policy front. With this, as we know, India has always been proud of its diversities. At the same time, that diversity adds the difficulties. When the entire world is today having life driven by the internet and the broadband, we in India having a 70% population living in the rural, as my friend Mr. T.V. Ramachandran I spoke, we have the challenges to connect them with the same digital connectivity, empowering them same as the people are there in the urban, providing them the opportunities similar to what we have in the urban side. But when we look into the figures published by the Telecom Regulatory Authority of the India on the 30th June this year, the picture is not that gloomy. Because if you look, the rural internet subscribers per 100 population is mere 33 against these 98 of the urban. So that gives an impression that how much digitally divided we are. The government had come out with 6,200 plus gram panchayat villages, which are supposed to be the cluster and comparatively slightly bigger villages, which were required to be connected using the satellite medium, and with the efforts of all of you together, so far up to January 2020 we could get this covered around 1255, and I'm sure in meantime some more villages are yet connected, but there is a huge gap. If you look into the policy perspectives of the government and the vision of the current government led by Mr. Modi, the NDCP itself says that the GramNet is the key parameter to get the villages connected with the 10 Mbps bandwidth. It also, and we say that under the BharatNet project, we shall be able to connect all the Gram Panchayats with 1 Gbps connectivity upgradable to the 10 Gbps. If we include the Jan Wi-Fi, the public Wi-Fi hotspots, and we says to be around 2 million, then the requirement of bandwidth connectivity is very huge. We all understand the limitations in terms of laying the optical fiber. Typically in the rural areas where the techno-commercial solutions may not be serving, the terrain may not be allowing to lay the cable, maintain it, and operate thereafter. Therefore, considering the availability of the satellite communication with same ease or with the same efficacy in urban or the rural, it is an opportunity for the satellite communication people that this industry play its role in bridging the digital divide which is existing as on date and bring the rural masses with digital empowerment together with the other urban people. We at the government are committed whether the schemes are required to be funded through the Universal Service Obligation Fund. The government is supporting all of them. We are identifying the places and the tenders are being already floated by the USF community. Also, the places which are yet not connected at the block level, we are asking the operator to get them connected irrespective of the technology, whatever they wish to. And it's not only the hiring of the bandwidth by the government, but the telcos themselves can hire the bandwidth for providing the connectivity to the far-flung areas to be covered. So, the role for all of us is very big. I, being the part of the licensing team and the policy formulation for the telecom satellite communications, would be very happy to listen all of you, collect the inputs from you, and work on those inputs, making the goals converted into the accomplishments, whatever we have envisaged in the NDCP 2018. I think with this, I hand over back to Mr. TV Ramachandran for the further discussions and will add on during the discussions whenever such requirement is there. Over to Ramachandran ji.
Sir, you're on mute. TV, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shakya, for your very insightful introduction. I'm sure there will be need for you to intervene at various stages since you are so proactive. I now hand over to Debashish to moderate and run the session and introduce the various speakers. Over to you, Debu.
Thank you very much, TV, sir, for those kind words. And thank you very much, Mr. Shakya, for that excellent context setter, which talked about the digital divide and how satellite can actually play a great role in bridging the digital divide and what the government is doing, particularly in setting the ground and easing the ground, and also urging the operators to sort of come forward and help in bridging this digital divide with whatever technology in a very technology agnostic and neutral manner. Thank you very much, sir, for that excellent and encouraging remarks to start with. With this, we take the session forward, sir, with your kind permission. Our next speaker who's going to grace the stage is going to be Mr. Harsh Varma from ACS. Now, before he does take the stage, I would like to set a few ground rules for all the speakers, both Mr. Varma and those who are likely to follow him, which is that you are all given a time slot of 10 minutes, please. Please stick to your timings. We will send out a bell or an alert bell after 8 minutes to inform you that you have another 2 minutes to go. And on the 10th minute, there will be a second bell to inform you that your 10 minutes is over. So we request you to kindly...
One correction, Debu. It will be 7th minute and 9th minute.
So my apologies. Yeah. 7 and 9 minutes respectively, instead of 8 and 10 as mentioned earlier. And all of you are requested to keep your speakers on mute, your mics on mute, and so that the session can progress smoothly. Thank you. With these words, I would now welcome Mr. Harsh Varma Before he comes to the floor, I'd like to give a small introduction. Mr. Verma is the Sales Director for Fixed Data Networks for Asia Pacific, or SES Networks. He has vast experience in the satellite industry, ranging from operations, sales engineering, product strategy, and sales. Prior to SES Networks, he has worked with leading OEMs and service providers in the satellite industry in the Asia Pacific region, notably with Hughes Network Systems and PCCW. With this short introduction, I would welcome Mr. Harsh Verma to grace the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Debashish. Thank you for the warm introduction, and thanks for having me here. Hope everyone can see and hear me okay.
Yes, we can.
Okay, I'm sharing my screen. Is that visible to everyone?
Not yet. Yeah. Now it is. Yes, it
Is
is.
it visible now?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, you put us under a very time under a clock, so I'll get started very quickly. So the theme of this, topic is how do we accelerate digital inclusion? What role does satellite play in it? I'm going to start with how the world is stacked up in terms of digital divide. And this is a snapshot from the report from ITU. So today the world, with 7 over billion population, 4.1 billion people are connected to internet, are online, which represents about 54% of the world's population, and most of the unconnected population resides in Africa and South Asia. And where does SES also sees it internally that digital inclusion project is one of the biggest growth engine for the satellite industry. Not only SES but the whole satellite industry. COVID-19 did impact these projects this year, but the flip side of this is that the governments are realizing that more and more connectivity is needed in rural areas as working population has shifted base to tier 2 and tier 3 cities. And now we are seeing an huge momentum and growth towards digital inclusion project, namely to name a few countries in Asia, India, Indonesia, Malaysia, and Philippines, where we see a number of projects now getting announced. And in terms of the impact of reliable broadband, I think everybody knows this, but there is a correlation between there's a strong positive correlation between how the broadband penetration increase and what happens to the country's economy. So the World Bank study says that 10% increase in broadband penetration has a 1.3% impact on the GDP, and it creates e-commerce. It creates job opportunities for the rural community, and I think in India this impact could be significantly higher, because as Mr. TV said, 70% of the population is rural. But really the impact of true broadband is just not delivering internet. It's all about delivering the applications along with it, which are government to citizen applications, e-commerce platforms like for instance, in India, distance education, telemedicine, which helps the rural community. In terms of the Indian broadband market, very well.
We just lost your screen. Sorry, can you just replace? Your screen has gone off.
Can you see it now?
No, not yet.
I don't know. Sorry. Oops. I think it's a.
Would you, for sake of time, Why don't you carry on, and maybe while the screen.
Okay. I mean, Uh, sorry, my system is.
I think is a network issue.
Debu and Arun, don't deduct this time from his allowed time.
Okay, sir.
Sorry, can you
Okay.
still hear me? Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you, but we can't
Please,
see
yes.
your screen.
All right. The slides were very interesting, and it is sad that it got chopped off.
I think there's a network problem
Oh,
at his end.
I think you better continue without the presentation, maybe.
That's what I advised him.
No, we have to wait for him to come back. Hmm. Shall we go on to the next speaker?
I don't know. We've not heard from him whether he would like to come back or losing time.
We are losing time. Maybe he can come back after the next speaker, if he's okay.
Yeah, I think that may be more
Yeah.
appropriate.
Yes, sir.
Let's
He's back. Harsh is
and
back.
but
Let's
at
see.
least
Back, he's back.
Yeah. Can you
Harsh,
hear me okay now? Sorry, I mean, I don't know
yes,
what
we can
now
hear
happened.
he's
you.
back now. Fine.
Harsh, if you have difficulty with the presentation, PPT, I suggest you just vocalize
Harsh,
because
just speak your lines. Leave the presentation if it's not coming on. So that's for the sake of time, man. Otherwise, we'll run short of time.
Okay, I'm gonna continue because I
Yeah,
think there are
please.
some issues in sharing the screen.
Mhm.
Um, all right. I mean, moving on. I mean, we were
Yeah.
talking about the India broadband market. So the Indian, I mean, by the mid of this year, I mean, Indian broadband market has done very well. There are 700 million subscribers which are connected to the internet, and almost 97% of the subscribers are being served by mobile broadband. But in terms of the speeds, there is a concern. I mean, India is still at the lower end when compared to the BRICS nation in terms of average download speeds available in India. And the NDCP policy that came out in 2018 is very forward looking. I mean, the three pillars for the NDCP policy are delivering mobile connectivity, ubiquitous coverage for mobile connectivity. It talks about e-governance and talks about internet access programs. I heard about Jan Wi-Fi in the opening remarks, and it talks about very ambitious targets about of 50 megabit delivery to each citizen and 10 Gbps connectivity.
Harsh, we are almost 10 minutes over time. Would request you to kindly wrap up. Yeah. Thank you, Harsh. For that presentation. I must regretfully admit that you were 10 to 12 minutes over time besides the network issues. Anyway, moving forward, we will now invite Mr. Manik Vinakota from Telesat as our next speaker. Before he comes onto the floor, I'll just give a brief introduction. Mr. Manik Vinakota is the Director Commercial and Product Development Telesat. He leads the commercial go-to-market for Telesat LEO, globally covering aero, marine, and terrestrial verticals. Prior to Telesat, Mr. Manik Vinakota was assisted mobile and wireline telcos across North America, Asia, and Africa in their commercial transformation. He has a global telecom perspective, combining both terrestrial and satellite technologies. Over to you, Mr. Manik, with a request to keep this to 10 minutes. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Dave, and thank you, BI, for organizing this forum. And Mr. Shakya, thank you for the great remarks in the opening and laying out the big problem that or opportunity, either way, for all of us here to solve for. So, like my other speaker, I'm also going to be using slides to. Okay. Okay, I'm having problems sharing my slides, so I'll just talk through it. It's okay. Um, I think firstly we need to pivot the discussion from not digital inclusion, but the real question is about universal connectivity. Because digital inclusion, in our view, in Telesat's view, downplays the problem we're trying to solve. This is not just a coverage issue. Everyone has a 2G connectivity today. So people are connected, but are they connected well enough? Do they have the same experience as all of us right now have, where we can have a large video conference going on? Download speeds matter, but upload speeds matter as well for schools that want to stream and students want to talk to their teachers, for example. So firstly, the question is about universal connectivity, where it is about solving for the quality of experience of every Indian, irrespective of where they live. If you have to frame this problem and what is the latent demand that we need to solve for, going by the mission objective that has been set, and Mr. Shakya laid out some very important numbers. We at Telesat estimate that it'll take at least 2 terabits of satellite capacity to solve the universal connectivity challenge that's in India. And this is primarily just to solve the backhaul equation. When we think of about 5,000 odd rural areas in India and about 40,000 odd mobile sites that do not have the right kind of backhaul, to give the experience that I spoke of. That's how we come up with the 2 terabits of capacity. We haven't even counted the JUN Wi-Fi hotspots, which will perhaps need even more. To put that in perspective, especially all the people in the satellite industry would be well aware of that. Today we have anywhere about 70 to 100 gigabits of capacity over India, including all the HTSs that are expected to be launched successfully next year. So we're talking about a 20 times delta between what we have today and where we need to be today if we want to solve and achieve the goals that we've set for ourselves. Obviously, that's not possible, but over the next 5 years, that needs to be solved for. And as the earlier speaker mentioned, this is not solvable through one network or one constellation or one satellite. This is a common goal, a common problem that would need the best of everyone and everything to be used for. There is fiber, there is microwave, that is definitely the toolbox, and satellite will become a part of that toolbox in order to solve that problem. But this is not only about capacity, and going back to the quality of experience as well. So the latency of the connectivity also starts becoming very, very important. Leading regulators across the world, whether it is FCC in the US or Ofcom in UK, have already made latency as a key parameter for rural connectivity funding. For example, US has a big Rural Digital Opportunity Fund process going on right now for about $20 billion, and one of the key criteria is latency below 100 milliseconds. Any network solution that doesn't meet the requirement of 100 milliseconds will not be qualified enough for accessing the universal broadband funds. So it is both about capacity as well as quality that we need to solve for. Talking a bit about our role and what we are doing, Telesat, for those of you who don't know, we are one of the largest satellite operators in the world today. We operate 16 GEO satellites of our own across C, KU, Ka band, broadcast, broadband, and so forth. But for our future, we are building a LEO constellation. Our LEO constellation is going to have 300 satellites that will offer full global coverage, and including covering every part of India. But the difference of how we've approached LEO versus other LEO plans that are out there is we are focused on being an enterprise-centric LEO, i.e., we've designed a LEO which will help mobile operators solve for their backhaul, which will help service providers better connect Wi-Fi hotspots or enterprises. We've not designed a constellation to be a direct-to-consumer model. And why we've decided to do that is because we believe the best economic equation to not just connect communities, but whether it's to ships or to planes or enterprises in remote areas, is a partnership-based hybrid approach. Terrestrial local access networks are very good at solving the local access issue. Backhaul is the big problem, and we are going to solve. We hope to solve or play a part in solving the backhaul issue. Our LEO network is designed, that's why, to deliver either 1 megabit to a single site to all the way to about 8 gigabits to a single site. So you can, depending on what is required at a single site, you can go from a megabit all the way up to 8 gigabits to a single site, and using very efficient small terminals, and more importantly, terminals which are interoperable. Our terminals, which our whole network is Ka band, and we are making sure that our terminals are LEO, MEO, and GEO compliant, so that a customer, a user, does not have to be locked in to only a LEO constellation. If for some applications, if they need to go to an ISRO's GSAT satellite, the same terminal should be able to do it. If they need to switch to the earlier speaker's mPower constellation, they should be able to do it. We believe in having an open standards, power to the user ecosystem, and that's why we've designed also a Ka band solution, and we are the only Ka band LEO constellation, unlike the other Ku band LEO constellations. Talking of resiliency, we've also connected all the satellites with inter-satellite links. And the benefit of that to the user, again, is that you are not dependent on only one satellite serving you at any point in time. You have an entire mesh of satellites that are connected and serving you. So all of those uh, contribute towards making a high capacity, high resilient constellation. And of course, on the cost, and we're doing all of this with the assumption that it has to be lower cost than any other satellite solution that is out there, but also any multi-hop microwave solution. If you have to have more than 2 microwave hops, then we believe we need to get satellite to be more cost competitive than that solution. We have one LEO satellite operational today, and it's been there for the last 2 years. We've done a number of technology demonstrations globally with Vodafone, with Telefonica, with Optus in Australia. We've demonstrated 5G backhaul, 4G backhaul, all kinds of enterprise applications. And the big benefit being the low latency makes the network highly secure because you don't have to compromise or break the IPsec tunnel to get around the high latency that traditional geo satellites suffer from. And we look forward to conducting a test in India as well. And we are talking to the authorities to make that happen. So that will be a great privilege to demonstrate the benefit of LEO for applications in India as the other parts of the world have done it. The government of Canada has already placed great trust in the Telesat LEO constellation, and we are the only LEO operator to be chosen by the government for their future universal broadband program. The government has subsidized capacity on the LEO network, which all the telcos in Canada are going to use, which is geographically a bit different from India because of the sheer size of the country, but still the problem remains. And the goal is the same, 50 megabits to every citizen. That is the goal of the Canadian government as well. And LEO is the only constellation to do that. So I've got the second reminder on the time, and I've finished my presentation. And the only concluding remark to keep in mind is going back to the opening statement that we need to solve for universal connectivity where speeds as well as quality are important, and we need to solve for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Manik. That was a very nice address, though we missed the benefit of your presentation. But I think for me, the two key takeaways from this was one about the rural broadband capacity estimation that you have done. I think is an eye opener. I think the 2 terabit as a benchmark, though you have excluded the backhauling of of the Wi-Fi hotspots, and you probably underestimate the cellular backhaul as well. But it doesn't matter. It sets a benchmark for the satellite operators to emulate and probably exceed going forward in India. Second, I think the key takeaway from this, as I could understand, was this concept of an interoperable terminal which works across LEO, GEO, and NEO satellites. And though, of course, only in the Ka band, which it was also available in the CE and the Ku band, thereby making it a truly universal and interoperable terminal. But it's an excellent initiative. Thank you for sharing with us these insights. And I'm sure Mr. Shakya would have made note of this. Thank you. Thanks a lot, because he had raised the issue on interoperability in yesterday's deliberations. Thank you. With this, we take the discussions forward. Our next speaker in this session is Mr. James Taylor, Director of Business and Market Development with Terra Global. Before welcoming Mr. James Taylor on stage, I'd like to just read a little bit about Mr. Taylor. Mr. Taylor is Director of Business and Market Development at Terra Global. He has over 25 years of experience in the global satellite and wireless telecom industry and has worked for various satellite and teleport operators. He introduced the first transatlantic satellite digital video service for news and sports transmissions, delivered the first internet trunking service via satellite into Saudi Arabia, and developed the first quad radio fixed wireless product range. With these few words, I hand over the floor to Mr. Taylor to give his presentation, with a request to kindly stick to the time. Thank you.
Good morning, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you so much, Debashish, for that kind introduction. And it is indeed a pleasure and a privilege to be in front of so many distinguished people here today. And I thank you for your time. I will just put up a quick slide deck, and hopefully this will all fire up, and we'll have been through our pain points with sharing the screen. Are you able to see my screen?
Not yet. We can't see yet.
I'll try once again. And now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Coming up. Yeah, thank you. It is visible.
Super, thank you so much. Without further ado, yes, thank you again. And this is obviously wonderful to bring to you in a time of global challenge due to the coronavirus pandemic. And obviously we are blessed here today with the technology that allows us to communicate and is a demonstration of the power of the internet. And the reason we're having this conversation today is to allow others to have that connection. And I thank the organisers of the event here for utilising these tools and allowing for all of us to appear from all sides of the globe and participate. Obviously, we look forward to times when we can get together in person. So, broadband economy. As we are seeing in every corner of our lives now, the internet is a necessary and powerful utility that enables economies to grow and thrive. Access to the internet is now considered as a higher right as electricity or even clean water. Connectivity to it positively changes lives. It enables education and healthcare delivery, reducing costs of access and distribution. From a government perspective, it fundamentally increases economic output from the grassroots up. And in order to ensure the success of such a life-changing and economic benefit, it requires the willingness of both government to set legislation to allow it to flourish, and Methera commends and supports the government of India and its recent steps to open up the space industry in India. Clearly, as a satellite operator, Methera is driven by a successful space industry, and there is a great talent in India for the design, manufacture, launch of spacecraft, and service provision. Competition with free, fair, and open access will help stimulate this further, driving innovation, productivity, and enabling cost savings. Positive regulation in this regard feeds the economy. For example, license exempting satellite terminals for broadband access can deliver a greater GDP impact. And we do appreciate that a regulator's role is a fine balance, managing chaos of an industry to prevent malpractice into a finely tuned and efficient machine that delivers the greatest economic impact for the economy and the people using the products and services within. So how do we get everyone connected and everything connected to the internet? Well, there are multiple technologies available and being developed to do this, and it is understood that no single variant can do this alone. 5G is in its infancy, and whilst a great opportunity to unify communication methods and provide faster speeds, it will be hindered by short range and deployment costs, so likely to favour higher concentrations of users or higher paying users. Satellites now are developing at a very fast pace, finally, not least spurred by entrepreneurs such as Elon Musk, impacting the whole satellite and space ecosystem. Each of the different systems will deliver a different signal strength, excuse that coming up, or capability. And even when combined with terrestrial solutions, we recognize there will not be enough bandwidth, as was previously mentioned, to satisfy satisfy everyone, because the satiable appetite for this bandwidth continues to rise at a rapid pace, with billions of connected devices connecting every year. And this 2 terabytes that was mentioned before, I think, is an underestimate. Maybe from today, but certainly in the years to come, it's going to get only more difficult, more challenging. Some solutions will be better suited to rural connectivity than others due to accessibility, cost, practicality, and capability. And the key is to ensure barriers such as cost and licensing are addressed with a focus on sustainable delivery. And obviously, we commend the government of India for its support in looking to help fund those operations. But naturally, we want them to be economically viable and ongoing and sustainable. Good health and education from these will change lives and help drive economic output. And from a regulator perspective, joined up thinking on spectrum, which is a big challenge for us all, license and development is paramount and not to be underestimated. Spectrum is a global and limited asset. Additionally, we understand that the infrastructure built across a country is now critical to the operations of it. Governments, businesses, people all rely on its availability for every activity, so it must be reliable, resilient, and above all, it must be secure. And Methera, as one of its challenges, is currently working to support its Digital Village pilot project to demonstrate the art of the possible in India. And applications and solutions will assess the impact of a connected environment in such a rural locations. And we'll be releasing more details on this shortly and hope to have that up and running in the first half of 2021. So, who and what is Methera? Our constellation of medium Earth orbit satellites enables internet connectivity anywhere on Earth using high-density, dynamically steerable beams. A beam can be steered in minutes to light up an entire area from little or no connectivity to super fast and ultra fast speeds. We're looking at about 20 gigabits per second in a single narrow beam. Not a satellite, just one beam. And whether a backhaul, so we can light it up to be super fast, ultra fast speeds, and whether we're using backhaul services for mobile wireless services, 1 gigabits duplex through a simple 1.2 meter antenna, or 300 megabits per second into a smaller 55 centimeter antenna. And we are developing with our partners more high-performing, low-cost terminals. Our system complements other satellite and terrestrial systems by providing the highest density of megabits per second on the ground of any current or planned satellite system by more than 10 times. We are in discussion with GEO and other LEO operators as well as terrestrial providers about integrated solutions to meet the demands of broadband connectivity everywhere. Our flexibility and throughput capability enables governments, telecom providers, and others to get capacity where it is needed and when it is needed. Even responding to a natural or man-made disaster, connectivity is quickly restored, saving millions in lost economic output. So, is this the broadband connectivity of the future? The cities of the near future, like now, will be blessed with all the connectivity forms available. But even these need to address the criticality of connectivity as well as the massive rise in bandwidth demand. Whereas the rural locations, unless supported by positive regulation with a holistic approach to sustainable living at a good connection speed, not a basic, but a good connection speed, they will continue to fall behind. Governments and service providers of all disciplines are working together to develop such models from which we can all positively benefit. So in the satellite industry, India is in a great position with its heritage in space and has the opportunity to deliver solutions not only to its own country, but to a global audience as well. When combined with this new space policy and the advances in satellite telecom across all disciplines, connecting everyone in the country with decent speeds, it's now looking much more favourable. Satellite and terrestrial operators should continue to develop and grow our services together to develop connectivity solutions to meet these demands of the rural and remote as well as the ever-growing demand of the planet. Methera looks forward to working with Indian partners, stakeholders and customers to deliver fast and affordable connectivity solutions in India and beyond, taking it beyond. So thank you for your time. That's the end of my presentation, and I look forward to questions at the end.
Thank you very much, James. That was an excellent presentation. And also, thank you very much for sticking to the time. And for me, the key takeaways was how you worked the broadband connectivity challenges to a situation where you talked about and the satellite can be a part of the overall solution, but it probably cannot meet everything So there needs to be an integration and a holistic approach towards the connectivity conundrum, which has to be where satellite is going to play an important part in that. And I totally appreciate that particular aspect of yours. Thank you very much for your presentation and your thoughts. With this, I move forward to the next speaker on our panel today, which happens to be Mr. Prashant Bhutani, Senior Sales Director from Miasat. Before I invite him to the floor, I'd like to just read a little bit about his profile. Mr. Prashant Bhutani has a Master's of Science in Satellite Communications Engineering from University of Surrey, UK, and he has over 15 years of experience in the satellite and telecommunications industry in pre-sales, sales, post-sales, online and offline marketing activities, project management, market research, strategy consulting, and business development. With these words, I hand over the floor to Mr. Prashant Bhutani now to give his presentation, and with a request to kindly stick to the time. Thanks, Prashant. Over to you.
Thank you, Debashish. Firstly, thank you to Shakya ji for the opening remarks for this session and setting the tone and laying out what are the opportunities and issues that we are facing in providing broadband uniformly. And indeed, I couldn't agree more. The digital divide today is perhaps a bigger issue than it has ever been in the past. We see time and again, given the year that we're all having, how people who don't have access to the internet are definitely much worse off than those that do, especially in their ability to access tools related to education, banking, e-commerce, etc. And furthermore, thank you to BIF, TV Sir, Debashish, Rajat, and the entire team for providing us this platform to be a part of and to speak about what is our experience as Miasat in enabling communities to have access to broadband. I'm going to focus today on what Miasat has already done and continues to do in enabling broadband access for rural communities across Malaysia. This is a model that we've tried and tested for a few years now and can replicate pretty much anywhere within our footprint. Just to tell you a little bit about Miasat, before getting into the specific broadband service that I mentioned, Miasat was founded in 1992 and our first satellite launched in 1996. And since then, we've operated and managed about 7 satellites that have collectively reached 150 countries across the globe and are able to provide access to 5.8 billion people globally. We support DTH platforms across Southeast Asia and India, through which we are able to reach more than 20 million subscribers. We also provide one of the most vibrant Asian high definition and ultra high definition video neighborhoods, in addition to being a satellite broadband service provider. In the last few years, we've gone from being a business to business B2B satellite operator to now being a B2C broadband ISP using satellite as the backbone. And the way we've done this is we've addressed the problem as it stands today and built a solution with what best we have available in terms of not just satellite capacity, but ground infrastructure as well. 2018 saw the launch of Connect Me, which is Malaysia's first high-speed satellite broadband consumer product, which we are able to provide as a company directly to end customers. And with this, we have taken steps to bridge the same digital divide that we've spoken of in the last 2 days of this discussion. Malaysia, that way, has a lot of similarities to India. There are about 7,000 villages that are beyond the coverage of 3G and 4G as it stands today. in Malaysia, and there are about 2 million people, which is about 4 to 5% of Malaysia's population, that is living outside of high-speed broadband coverage. And all of this population can today log on to our website or any website using our Connect Me service. And the way we deliver this is by using high throughput capacity on our MiaSat 5 satellite, which essentially is a high throughput payload on the IP star system with coverage across East and West Malaysia. Via Connect Me, we are able to provide 100% broadband coverage across Malaysia. And we do this using simple 1.2 meter antennas, an indoor unit and an outdoor unit that allows you to pretty much configure this system anywhere across the country. And it can be done either by one of our engineers or one of our distribution partners that are present across the country. We have multiple variants of Connect Me. We have Connect Me direct to the home. We have Connect Me for SMEs and enterprises. And we have a Wi-Fi hotspot solution, which is called Connect Me Now. And with this Connect Me Now, we've essentially mirrored what Mr. Shakya spoke about as well, and we've spoken about throughout this session as the public Wi-Fi hotspots, which are the need of the hour to enable rural communities to have affordable access to broadband, irrespective of the technology they're using. So essentially, anywhere across Malaysia, wherever there is a Connect Me Now hotspot, a user can purchase a prepaid voucher with a certain amount of data on it, ranging from 1 to 5 GB or going on even further, and use this voucher to essentially log on to the Connect Me system wherever there is a Wi-Fi hotspot. This allows pretty much anyone, be it a tourist visiting one of Malaysia's many beach resorts, which are located on a remote island, or a student who is studying in a public school in a remote village of Malaysia, or a government facility which is a clinic which is beyond 3G coverage and needs access to the internet to be able to provide telemedicine services. We're able to provide this today, and we can replicate this model for India if need be. Let me go into how we deliver this. The MiaSat 5 satellite, as I mentioned, is our high throughput system. This in 2022 will be replaced by the MiaSat 3D system, which is a new satellite that we are building with a dedicated high throughput payload for Malaysia, which will take the current capacity up by a factor of 4 and allow the per user bandwidth, which is currently at about 25 megabits per second, to go up to about 100 megabit per second. That essentially would provide true broadband access to all these people. So what are the problems that typically are encountered in such a system? The first would be the power availability at the site. This is something we've resolved by allowing the user terminals to function on solar power, where traditional power is not available. We've tested and deployed such systems. The second would be the ease of access commercially to such products. And we've done that by having a system that uses prepaid vouchers, which people with a certain amount of disposable income can access as and when they need to. So this system, in terms of the Indian context, can be deployed in one of three ways. You could look at leveraging the existing direct-to-home subscribers across India, which is more than 70 million dishes across the country, and enabling the existing DTH systems to provide broadband access. This could have a return path either over satellite or over 3G. And then the other way that you could do this is have a dedicated high-throughput satellite over India, which is available today, and could also be extended with a bigger higher throughput Ka-band geostationary satellite that could go on to provide 100 Mbps to each terminal. In summary, what I'd like to say is that ConnectMe has enabled 100% high-speed broadband coverage in Malaysia, and the same can be replicated across India with either DTH providers or telecom companies. This high-speed broadband access in Malaysia today will be extended from 25 Mbps on MEASAT 5 to 100 Mbps per terminal with the MEASAT 3D system, which will launch in 2022. And finally, satellite pay TV providers, DTH providers in India, could extend their network to providing broadband access to rural users as part of the BharatNet project and leverage their existing user base at the same time. So with this, I'd like to conclude my session. Thank you, Debashish. Thank you, Broadband India Forum, for giving us an opportunity to present our experience in delivering rural broadband to communities. And all I'd like to say is that we are doing this today, and we are more than happy to continue doing this in the Indian context in the future.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Prashant, for setting the context from the Malaysian side to the Indian side, and for trying to sort of give us a similarity between the Malaysian scenario and the Indian scenario, and how the ConnectMe experience that you had over 2 years of doing B2C connectivity in Malaysia could be replicated in India. Thank you very much for that perspective. We move on with our program, and we have come to our last speaker, the next speaker in the list, which happens to be Mr. Shivaji Chatterjee, who's the Senior Vice President of the Enterprise Business Unit in Hughes Communications India Limited. Now, a brief introduction to Mr. Shivaji Chatterjee. Mr. Chatterjee has areas of expertise which include satellite communications, broadband networking, and business solutions across diverse industry segments, with many firsts in the area of digital cinema, e-governance, banking, and distance education. Having joined Hughes in 1997, he has spearheaded many achievements for Hughes and in the VSAT industry in India in the past 23 years. With these words, I now hand over the floor to Mr. Shivaji Chatterjee with a request to kindly keep to the time. Thank you very much. Shivaji, the floor is yours. We just lost you, it seems.
I'm back.
Yeah.
Not that easy. So thank you, Debashish. And I think we've heard on the supply side from all the different satellite operators, present and future satellites. And I'd like to talk a little bit more in India about the demand side of things to see how, that's going and actually how the programs are being made. So I hope this screen is visible, Debashish.
It is. Yes, Shivaji, it is.
Okay,
we
great.
Can see your screen as well.
Perfect. So there are three ways really, which I feel, in a very simple way to reach the rural citizen. The first is broadband to the roof, just like DTH. HughesNet, what we run as a consumer broadband service worldwide on satellite is a great example. There are various government programs where it won't be to the roof of a consumer, but the roof of a school or a healthcare center, public-private partnership. The other is through Wi-Fi. As we all know, Wi-Fi is a great last-mile option, and I think the BharatNet program, which takes the Gram Panchayat connectivity to the household, is a great example of that. And there are a lot of private providers. We see Satya of Bluetown active. They're a great example too. And then, of course, the third is through mobile, through 4G and 5G cellular backhaul connectivity. And of course, we have great operators in India which do that. So I feel these are the three ways to do it. And let's go a little bit more and discuss each way. The first element, we all know that it's, satellite is going to take that part which is tough to reach terrestrially. It could be a remote area, desert, hills, islands, forest, it could be a very interior area. There are different kinds of ways you define that last 5 to 10%, which is very tough to reach using terrestrial or microwave backhaul. And that's where satellite can bring a quality of service straight to the rooftop. I think if we look at DTH, it's a great example. India was a cable only country, and the way DTH dishes have mushroomed all over, and not just mushroom, but provided that unique satellite quality of service. And it's not just bridging the divide. Today, we are able to bridge the divide with roads also. But how many of the rural roads are of that quality? With satellite, that's one big difference. It bridges the divide and gives a quality which is on par with anything in the city. So that I feel is the unique ability of not just bridging the divide, but doing it with the quality which a rural citizen deserves as much as we get in urban India. If we look at HughesNet, it was very ambitious program. We've been in it for over 20 years. It's very tough to make a satellite broadband consumer to the rooftop service work. We've gone through different cycles and generations of it, and now we are in our fifth iteration. We have multiple satellites that we put in only to be vertically integrated. We don't really sell the capacity as a satellite operator like the others today. It's really to provide an economics to make it possible, and that economics today has made it possible to run a service of 25 Mbps plus to the consumer at rates which are very affordable, comparable to DSL and cable. In fact, the FCC rates the satellite broadband QoS of Hughes higher than guys like AT&T and Comcast. So that's incredible. Coming
Pardon
to
me,
India, I'm very
Pardon me, Shivaji.
sorry.
Sorry for interruption. We can't see your presentation. Can you please
Okay,
share your screen again? It looks like it's
okay. Yeah, it seems to have gone off. Okay, is it back?
not yet.
And if you can repeat your last point.
Yep.
Yeah, the last point was about how we've made a consumer satellite broadband to the rooftop possible and successful with more than 2 million consumers in North and South America. Everyone thought it's only US which has this unique economic model where rural consumers can afford satellite. What we've proved even in South America is which are all developing countries, that it is possible. You just need to be innovative and need to have a very good cost and service delivery. I'm very proud of the BharatNet Satcom network. It's India's first true HTS network deployed end to end. We have over 2,500 gram panchayats connected. We have border outposts connected right from Gujarat, Rajasthan, right up to the Myanmar and Bangladesh border. It's what is unique is you're getting over 30 megabit of service to each location. So again, as I said, it's not just about bridging the divide, it's bridging it with a class of service which really gives that opportunity for the rural economy and rural citizen to be well and truly included.
Sorry to interrupt, Shivaji. Your
Yeah.
screen is still not visible. It's still blank. I think you have a bandwidth issue. If you shut your camera and maybe put on the screen, maybe it will be easier.
I'm doing that.
Yeah. Kindly share your screen because we're still not able to see it.
Lost
Oh, we lost.
connection. Come
Yeah,
back.
he's
Now
back.
it's
He's back. We can see.
Okay.
We can see the screen.
So again the BBNL program. Okay, great. So you can look at it. It's the toughest sites in India, the most remote villages in over 15 to 16 states that we've done it in. These are actual pictures of deployment which have been on for over a year's time. Again, I feel it's not just about broadband, it's about uses of broadband and the applications which matter. And I feel it's the fundamental applications for a rural consumer. It's education, it's health, financial inclusion, and of course, broadband is what connects them to the internet in a more general sense. And there are different endpoints. It need not be just the household. There are schools, healthcare centers, banks, business correspondents. You have the common service centers, etc. And that's where I think BBNL has a great infrastructure, or I think various initiatives by private service providers, satellite operators looking to collaborate and bring this capacity to this kind of demand which exists. If we look at some of the rural projects which kind of are demanding satellite broadband, we've all talked about the National Broadband Mission, which got announced by the Prime Minister on Independence Day. We have Northeast, which is heavily dependent on satellite communication, having a digital Northeast spearheaded by Donner. We have the National Education Policy announced recently, which makes way for online training, teacher training, education using satellite communication with a subsidy, and of course the telemedicine element for health, second opinion services, live consulting, and the e-Sanjeevani application, which again has gone live on the BBNL network. So these are all actual great applications which are there. I'd like to now pivot to how satellite broadband has evolved, and it's like a summary of the last 2 days. We have our established segments. Some of these segments we've talked about today, and I think consumer internet, IoT, mobility, 5G, these are all emerging. And I just want to put up one slide. There are many segments, so don't get flustered by it. But what we try to do is look at the market potential of these segments. How much has India tapped? How much has globally been tapped by Satcom? And where do we stand? And I think if you look at it, India fares worse than globally in quite a lot of these segments where supply and bandwidth cost is an important factor. And I really hope we can bridge that supply gap. I really feel it's not a rural divide. The rural divide is ready. We need the supply divide to be bridged. And if we look at some of the enterprise applications, we've done much better. India already runs some of the largest shared hubs in the world and the largest in Asia Pacific. So I think the Indian operators have done a great job. But overall, there's a lot of application potential. Another interesting slide, you can look at the different policy changes by the government and how the bandwidth cost from 50,000 per kbps came down to 2,500 per kbps, which is more or less the levels we have today. But I really feel if the government policy, we've talked about Satcom policy, NDCP, but I feel a little more quicker and practical implementation of it will really lead way to a supply boom. And then all these applications and the cost per kbps, I think, will fall by 10 times. And that's what is needed. Otherwise, you can't compete with fiber, which is 100 times cheaper. You can only innovate to some extent. So that's also a very important point of getting these applications put to use. My last slide, is there's no doubt for rural broadband. If you look at a mix of consumer, through telecom providers, through Wi-Fi providers, through BharatNet, through applications which are PPP, there are multiple potential applications and they're all waiting to go. The Indian consumer doesn't want to wait for tomorrow. Secondly, there's no doubt we lack in terms of capacity. There's so much great talk, and we just saw 4 presentations in this section being all about capacity. And we need to bring that into India, and definitely the NGSO is an important piece of that whole supply. And lastly, I think if you really want to bridge the divide, satellite has to be looked much more proactively. Even today, what is going to satellite is the worst of worst sites, and for BharatNet. But if you really look at it, the program has not even been able to reach 50% of its rollout after 7-8 years. So satellite can very quickly come bridge the gap. We have examples like Gujarat, Rajasthan, where the entire state, all gram panchayats were done in 1 year. So think differently is what I would tell the regulators, and satellite is possible here and now. The supply is there, the will is there of the service providers, and I think if we can bring everything together, we'll really see rural broadband being harnessed through satellite communications in India better. Thank you.
Thank you, Shivaji. That was an excellent presentation. Though we had some technical glitches on the way, for a brief period we couldn't see your presentation, but thank you very much for bringing out those excellent thoughts regarding the supply side boom which is required, the what does the consumer really demand in terms of capacity, and the issues related to how we can harness satellite capacity most on
Okay.
demand or on
Mr.
tap.
Devashish?
Yes, sir. Sorry. Yes, sir. Shakya, sir. I was just wrapping up, sir, and then would request you to kindly come to make the concluding remarks. I
Mr.
hope
Devashish?
I'm audible, sir. Yes, sir. I'm speaking,
I
sir.
can hear you, Debashish.
Shakya, sir, am I
Yeah, I
not
think I was
audible?
making a request to take it forward because
Uh-huh. I am
he has
speaking
finished
right
his
now,
talk.
sir. I'm wrapping. Yeah, yeah. I'm just wrapping up, sir, and then requesting you to come on for making your concluding remarks. Is that okay?
Yeah, please do that. Complete quickly.
Yeah. So, thank you, Shivaji. So, with this now, we have come to the end of our presentation. It's already 12 past 5. So, as I can see there are no questions either in the chat group or on the Q&A, though we had kept some time for that. But without much ado, in that case, since there are no questions, may I request our chair of the session, Mr. Shakya, to give his concluding remarks, please. Over to you, sir. Shakya, sir.
Thank you, Devashish ji. I believe there is no question and answer session which was part of the program.
Okay.
So I think before I take concluding, it would be
Okay.
better if we can have question answer.
Okay. So we'll give 5 minutes. Is it okay?
Yeah, let us give it since the people
Okay.
had spoken
Okay.
so wonderfully good.
Yeah. So I throw the floor open to any questions that people have, anybody in the audience has. You can type it into the chat group or on the Q&A, or you can raise your hand in case you have any. And we shall get you to ask your question. And please direct it to the person whom you want the answer from. Yes, SNG sir, you can kindly raise your hand, please. Mr. Satyan Gupta sir. You are in the Q&A. Okay. Can I request Mohit? Can you please get Mr. Satyan Gupta on backstage to ask the question? Can you open the mic for him? Meanwhile, I'm getting Mr. Ravi Saxena, who has asked a question. Mr. Saxena, please proceed with your question, please.
Yes, Mr. Manik Vinokota has talked about the interoperability of satellite terminals, but mostly all service providers have their proprietary terminals. Now, is it not possible that satellite industry and the service providers come together and develop terminals which are software configurable on the line of mobile phone such that for each band, say for Ka band one type, for the Ku band one type, or S band, C band, and when you put a card into that from a service provider similar to a SIM card, it automatically gets configured to its channel coding and baseband coding. So you can have a one type terminal for each band which can be configured by inserting a SIM card. I think industry should look into that and work on such type of terminals. Then only you will be able to reduce cost and be able to provide this satellite connectivity at every place with which is possible. Thank you.
Manik, would you like to respond to that?
I think it was it was a good comment. We are trying to solve for, at least on the antenna side, that the antennas are interoperable, which is the major cost. Even on the modem, there are a number of universal modem initiatives, but it's an economics equation today. Satellite industry hopefully will get to some kind of volumes like the mobile industry, but till that happens, it's a cost equation. Technology is not a constraint. Technology is there. We are working on several universal modem initiatives. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Manik. I have Mr. Ashwini Sharma. Mr. Sharma, would you like to ask your question? Looks like Mr. Sharma is there. So,
I'm very
Mr.
much here.
Satyen Gupta, can you please raise your hand on the right hand side?
Hello.
Oh, wait a minute. We have Mr. Ashwini Sharma is on stage. Mr.
Yes.
Sharma, please go ahead.
Can you? Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Debashish ji. First of all, let me thank Hughes for having me here. My domain is aircraft maintenance and everything connected with that. And but my question is a more mundane question. Anybody can take it. Maybe Shivaji can take it. So you see, the broadband is rolled out with great fanfare, and a lot of speeds are promised. But the actual subscriber experience leaves much to be desired. The actual speeds, uplink, downlink speeds are much lower, and we have seen it with all the service providers, including Geo. So can you please throw some light on when and how this anomaly would be addressed by the industry? Thank you.
Okay, I'll try to answer that. So clearly, what's changing is it's a matter of spectrum in terms of how much capacity is available. And what's happening at a rapid rate is the consumption is growing a lot, much more than the amount of spectrum and amount of capacity. So that's the first big change, and that's why networks tend to choke. Secondly, a lot of the wireless and satellite spectrum is limited, and it's you base it on concurrency. So when the number of users grow and the demand is so much higher, your concurrency ratios go out, and that's when you start seeing slowness in peak times, etc. So the only solution, whether it's for the cellular world or whether it's for the satellite world, anyone with a wireless nature, is you need to keep giving more capacity, and that's why the need for K-band, the need for different orbital systems, the need for Q and V band even further, and you need to keep going to the next generations. From today India hardly has HTS, and then you have NGSO and next stage system. Similarly on cellular, 5G is so much needed exactly for that reason. So that's the whole issue. It's not a technical glitch. It's a matter of capacity not keeping up with the demand.
Thanks, Shivaji.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I think we have Mr. S.N. Gupta, Satyen Gupta, please. Sir,
can you
please
hear
go
me,
ahead.
Debu?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Debu. I'm Satyen Gupta. Sakya ji, I co-chair the Rural Digital Initiative Committee in BIF. By complementing all the presenter, I have a question. Basically, like earlier, we have a supply side issue for about 40,000 villages, which were technically non-feasible from the backhaul capacity point of view. But now it has become very clear that capacity is there in the non-terrestrial media, like LEO is there. Then someone talked about K-band, and then these high throughput satellite systems are there. So now there is a supply side also taken care of, and the demand side, the 40,000 villages which don't have even the 2G kind of backhaul, what to talk about data backhaul. So how to bridge that gap by facilitating regulation or some kind of VGF or other kind of tools which government should be using, as have come out very clearly. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Gupta sir. Shakya sir, would you like to respond to Mr. S.N. Gupta's
Of
comment?
course, of course, I think it is my duty to respond to his query. Dear friends, we understand the requirement of getting connected the unconnected places. And the government, exactly with that specific need, came out to support the projects under the Universal Service Obligation Fund. So we understand these places are not commercially viable for the private or operators, and due to that they are not able to reach the places. Having that situation understood, we came out with the multiple projects. One, say, with respect to the Gram Panchayat connectivity, as I mentioned in my beginning initial discussion, that 6,200 Gram Panchayats have been identified which need to be connected with the financial support of the government under USO scheme. Once this reach is there, definitely we will be able to cover over 6,000 Gram Panchayats. Out of them, as per my information, 2,500 were already covered, and actual coverage may be more than that because the data I have was slightly older. Then, since we do not have the good connectivity in the northeast, we came out with the specific projects that these are the places which have to be provided mobile connectivity, and the backhaul there could be over fiber, it could be over satellite, it could be over microwave. We had not defined the technology on which technology the operators have to go. Only thing what we had said, at the moment they provide the connectivity to these places, the government will provide the subsidy and the funding, enabling those places covered not only on the 2G but with the 4G connectivity as well. So I am sure you will see a great change in a very small period of time. One project has gone to the Airtel, which has already done a lot of work. Another project is there with the Geo. They are also working on that. And once those are completed, the probability of having not connected thing will diminish. And surely, even after, if something is required to be further connected, we are committed to fund from the universal service obligation and reach to the people who are currently unconnected with the society. So that bridge part of getting connected unconnected is definitely there, and we all are committed to fulfill the vision of the Prime Minister. In fact, he has made more than that, that 6,000 villages have to be fiberized. So we are going to have another plan for all those places under the fiber connectivity. That plan is under progress, being worked out at the policy level under the USOF administration. And once that is finalized, it will come in public. I hope that will answer your requirement.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a
Thank
lot.
you. Thank you, Shakya sir. Thank you very much. I see no other.
Hey, this is Manik.
Yes. Yes,
Can I
Manik.
just add a comment to this?
Yes, please, Manik. Yeah, please.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Sakya. I think that's the right way to look at it as a technology agnostic solution. On behalf of the satellite operators, I think though there's this capacity that is available, as someone noted, it is not available in India because of the current regime, the current constraint. So when evaluating, I think the cost economics of satellite can be, as Shivaji from Hughes mentioned, could be an order of magnitude lower, and that could expand the potential options out there. So we look forward to going in that direction. Technology agnostic, no constraint environment. So the best technology can offer the lowest cost technology can fulfill the solution.
Thank you, Mani.
I'd like to just make a comment to Mr. Shakya, if I can, Debashish.
Yes, please, Shivaji. Go ahead.
So, Mr. Shakya, while you talked about this USO 4G projects, the DOT is saying, I will only give a subsidy for 1 or 2 years, and then you have to shift the link from satellite. The DOT is providing a subsidy of a rate which is far result, none of the telecom operators are looking at satellite as a true subsidy, because if you're telling them to migrate in 1 or 2 years, or you're giving them a subsidy which is far lower than their actual cost, then it's not going to incentivize the deployment of satellite for 4G backhauling through the USO project.
Mr. Shakya has lost his connection, I think.
Yeah, it looks like we have to wait for him to come back.
Either
Or we can just find
the
a way to get
users
this point.
Yeah, Shakya sir is back.
will be able
He's
to
back.
use the services, and that will compensate the investments being made by the telcos. Or meantime, it is also possible that the operators may lay further fiber, and after fiberization, the satellite cost have to be in comparison with the fiber. So our condition to provide 2 years or so is only on the pretext that the people will be able to make their business models viable, affordable to the citizens, and there won't be any further requirement of the government support. That is one. Number two is, as we all know, that in terms of the technology bandwidth provisioning, fiber doesn't have any comparison. So if the people are moving towards the fiber, the limitation of say 1G, 10G, 100G, they all becomes apart, and the fiber is much more better connectivity. These are the two considerations, I think, which has forced the USF administration to support the funding for 2 years. And what I would like to urge on behalf of the government as well as the individual consumer, any technology works only when it is cost competitive with other concurrent technologies. So if the services of the satellite through the LEO constellations, HTS, or forthcoming non-GSO anything are made compatible to the mobile services, definitely the people will have the choices to think for. So I am sure you all will be working out towards that and bring out the cost comparable with the mobile facilities as on day. Once they are comparable, the issue will not be there. In case there are issues in terms of the licensing which are making you uncomparable, we would like to take those things forward. You can write individually to us, and you can write to the department either as an operator or as a technologist or as a forum. In any way, you all are most welcome to write to us. We will try to see how best we can resolve those issues if they are the impediments just because of the regulatory requirements. So those parts we will try to address. But my friends, having capacity is not enough. You have to make the capacity and the technology available at the affordable cost, at competitive cost, so the user and the telcos together can decide which technology they want to use.
Thank you
I
very
hope
much,
I
sir.
answered it.
Thank you very much, sir, for this very detailed and a very constructive answer. So with this, I think I don't see any other hands. There is one more hand. Let me, sir, with your kind permission, can I take this last question before, or shall we?
Please, please.
Thank you. Mr. Ashwini Sharma wants to ask a question. Please go ahead, Mr. Ashwini.
Thank you, Debashish, for indulging me. It's not a question, it's just a suggestion that can all the speakers, eminent speakers, leave their email IDs in the chat box so that all of us can note them down and pose any questions that may come to us later. And thank you very much for an excellent program and lovely presentations. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ashwini ji. You can send the questions to Broadband India Forum, and we shall send the questions, take it forward on an offline mode with the speakers and get you the response. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
So with this, we have reached to the end of the Q&A. It was quite exhaustive. Lasted about 15 minutes. Shakya sir, now as a session chair, we request you to kindly provide your concluding remarks.
Thank you, Devasiji. I think it has been a wonderful opportunity for me as an individual and the department, where we could understand the various aspects and the concerns raised. Few things are very important for us, and I would like to have individual details collected. One thing is in respect of the say 2 terabit capacity requirement, as we said by the Telesat, we will be more than happy if you can share the details on waste which you had come out with this kind of the speculations. So once we understand that, the other policy perspectives can be linked with that, and we can envision to meet that. That is one part. Another thing is, I'm very happy that I spoke on the interoperability part yesterday in my talk, and Telesat come forward, shared their views, and I absolutely endorse the view of one of the participant. I think I'm just missing his name, who mentioned that why can't we have the software defined networks which can enable the usage of the various operators things on a single device by virtue of those small softwares. So I wish that day comes very soon, and we will have such kind of the software defined network chips which can enable the user equipment of from one to any of the constellation or these satellite service providers. The most important aspect which my friends had said repeatedly, I don't want to name individually, but all of you had come out, that the difference will come only when the bridging of the divide of digitality is there with the quality of the service. Mere division will not help. I endorse your view, and as my friend shared, that the probability of using the direct to home services, which I think most of the Indian households do have the connectivity for their broadcasting receive of the channels. If the same set of the technology terminals, same set of satellite with slight modification say on the set-top box is possible to enable broadband thereon, not only for the sake of say small connectivity, but the true sense at least 10 Mbps plus speed, that can definitely change the entire schema of the country in terms of the requirement of the broadband. And probably people will even forget that the broadband delivery over internet is over mobile technology is going to play a role. Probably the entire thing may get shifted to the DTH kind of the platform, wherein we can have much larger reach. So we look forward for those kind of the innovations. Some of the speakers mentioned that they have the technology which they would like to demonstrate under the 5G program. My friends, I welcome you on behalf of the DOT. You can apply with any of the existing licensees, narrating the capability of your product or the technology, in what manner it is going to help, and with a very nominal cost of the spectrum being allocated for the experimental purposes, initially for 6 months, which may be extendable based on the requirement. We will be there to support you. And one thing very important to note to all of you, that it's not only what you have tested outside you would like to experiment in India. We will be more than happy to experiment first time in India and then take it forward to the globe. So we really want to foster the innovation in the field of the satellite communication, and please forward and share our technologies and have the demonstration done within the country. In fact, there are very important things made by all of you, and each speaker has been very specific in his talks, informed about their abilities, their capacities, and the concerns in general, and not specific to himself. So I think as a platform, we all who had been participating in this got what technical capabilities are there all across the globe by the different vendors, which has been absolutely clear mentioned by the speakers. So I'm really thankful to all of them, and we take forward. One of the participant asked to share the email IDs. I think I had written on the chat board. Please feel free all the time. We are available to you. I made the statement yesterday. I repeat that. Irrespective of the time, you can always get connected to me, and we are here to help and ensure that the with anything envisioned by the Honorable Prime Minister on the Independence Day, as well as provided in the NDCP recently announced draft policy, say Satcom by the Department of Space. We all are there to make them happen and accomplish all the goals written there. With this, I want to thank Mr. Ramchandran, who has really made 2 days easy for all us, busy for all of us, as well as making us more knowledgeable, more informed, which will definitely enable us for the better decision making at the government side. And Mr. Devasis has made my work very easy. He has moderated so nicely that I was not required to intervene in between anywhere. And even in my absence, this would have gone very well. So I appreciate the personal efforts put by Mr. Devasi during the whole session. And my personal appreciation to each speaker who has thoughtfully put the things in order, made the things clear in the mind of the people, has given their perspectives of the companies, about the business, about the technologies, about the global activities and the need of the country, and spoke putting India in the perspective, making things better for us as an Indian. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir.
Over.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We are very, very obliged.
Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
I'm
Yes,
going
sir.
to take the liberty of interrupting for a
Please
minute.
do. Yes.
It so happens that in my earlier introduction, I mentioned about Mr. Avi Goodgold, who was the first chairman of our BIF Satcom committee, and
Correct.
he pioneered all the Satcom work here.
Yes.
Whatever little I know of Satcom is through him. I'm very, very proud that he is present today attending this session, and I want to acknowledge that and thank him for that. He is one who first said, way back in 2016, he said how satellite data tariffs can be brought down several fold by various actions and taken to the rural area in India. So my salutations to Abby Goodgold, who's with us, and I thank all the excellent speakers for the brilliant presentations made. Thank you, sir, and thank you very, very much, Mr. Shakya. You are as fantastic as usual. Thank you. Back to you, Dev.
Thank you, TV sir. So I totally endorse your remarks, so I don't need to. I think Avi Goodgold has been my guru in many areas other than satellite as well. And so I thank him. And at the same time, sir, I wanted to take the opportunity to thank Mr. Shakya on behalf of all the organizers and all the participants of Broadband India Forum for giving us those very, very encouraging concluding remarks. Those are kind of gold, sort of a beacon light for us to now take it forward and make satellite broadband the new frontier and make it happen in the coming years. So thank you, sir, for those very encouraging words that you mentioned and for supporting and continuing to support and going forward with all the government policies so that satellite broadband can be enabled probably in the same way as mobile broadband is today. We might see very soon a revolution happen. We all look forward to it, sir, and we will all thank you for it once that happens, sir. We know, sir, you're already doing a lot and you will continue to do a lot for this. Thank you, sir. So with these words, I will now hand over the floor to Mr. Rajat Mukherjee, who is the Director General of Broadband India Forum, to give the vote of thanks and also a short talk about what lies ahead of us in our next edition of India Satcom to be held in 2021. Over to you, Rajat.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Devesh. And this has been a totally hugely impressive session today. And I'd like to thank each and every one of the speakers. But after the impressive inaugural session yesterday, where we were fortunate to have a very wide representation of members, both from the policy side as well as from the industry side, today's has been especially interesting for me. Earlier today, we had a session chaired by Shri S.K. Gupta, who was Secretary TRAI, on Indian flight and maritime connectivity. And now we have just completed this final session, chaired by Shri Shakya, DDG of the Department of Telecommunications. I would like to acknowledge the efforts taken by each and every one of the members who have joined us from different time zones around the world. And I am conscious of the fact that we have somebody from as far off as Canada. It must be a difficult time for you to have joined us. We appreciate that, Mr. Manik Vinakota. Thank you very much. Mr. Harsh Verma has had to drop off early, but he made an excellent presentation in spite of the fact that there were some technical glitches. Mr. Prashant Bhutani, it was good to have you again today. You have been with us for the 2 days, and it is really encouraging to have you and your organization joining with us so keenly. Mr. James Taylor, thank you very much for joining us from the UK. I do hope that you found today's interaction both interesting as well as beneficial, not just to you individually, but for your organization, Methera, as well. And finally, of course, Mr. Shivaji Chatterjee, your valuable contribution today in spearheading the entire huge satellite activity is indeed very, very helpful to the session. But Mr. Shakya, as has already been said by both TV Ramachandran as well as Devashish Bhattacharya, it is very, very, very gratifying that you have been able to take out so much time to attend both today's session as well as yesterday's session. And we'd like to thank you, sir, for your report and for your support. This brings us to the end of the two-day virtual conference of the 6th India Satcom 2020. And before we close, I think it is appropriate to recognize and thank all those individuals who made this happen. To our platinum partner, SES, with offices around the globe, our grateful thanks for your support, and we look forward to working with you again. To our silver partners, Miasat and Telesat, many thanks. To each and every one of our special valued partners who form the BIF Satcom Committee, thank you for your continued support and assistance in making this two-day event such a huge success. Nelco, Hughes, Viasat, Inmarsat, Intelsat, OneWeb, and Star TV. Knowing that you're always there to support us is enormously reassuring. To our supporting organizations, Avia, GVF, SSPI, and WTA, we look forward to working with you again next year, if not before. To our media partners, Broadcast and CableSat, DigiAnalysis, Tele.net, and Voice and Data, I am certain that you have much content to fill your columns. And finally, to our event partner, Bharat Exhibitions, without whose help we would never have been able to stitch this entire event together. Our thanks. This event has had many players to ensure that it ran smoothly, but the guiding force behind it has been our President, Mr. T.V. Ramachandran. Without him, I believe the event, which is such a huge task, may never have taken place. Thank you for your continued support and guidance, TV. I would also like to acknowledge the unstinting support of the members of the Directorate who worked both in front as well as behind the scenes to make it possible for the audience to engage and be engaged on both these days. Thanks have already been given to each of the speakers who provided valuable inputs to make this event, but seeing it as live as well as being streamed both out on Facebook and YouTube, and I'm sure the total audience, I don't have a number, but I'm sure the total audience was enormous, enough to make this a phenomenal success. Thank you very much. With those final words, it also gives me great pleasure to share with you that our next event, the 7th India Satcom 2021, is due to be held on the 10th and 11th of November 2021. So please pencil that into your diaries from today, and in the hope that the pandemic will be over and that you will be in a position to travel, I look forward to welcoming each and every one of you again. Till then, goodbye, good day, adieu, farewell, and namaste.
Thank you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Over to you, Debashish.
I guess we are at the stage where we have reached the end. I don't think I have anything more to say. I just wanted to inform everybody on stage as well as in the audience that Mr. T.V. Ramachandran has been unfortunately been disconnected from the platform because the cyclone has just now hit Chennai. And as a result of which he has lost his connection and he is not able to join back. So there is just wanted to let that news be percolated across all the members of the audience that he is unable to rejoin after having got disconnected because of the cyclone, because apparently the power is shut down in the area completely. Well, and the generator is also not working. So unfortunate.
And on that very unfortunate note, once again, let me thank each and every one of the speakers.
Yeah.
And wish you all a very good day.
Yeah. Thank you all. Thanks. Bye. Bye. Good night.
Thank you.
Bye, sir. Thanks and good night.
Thank you, Shagir Sahab. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dean. Let us be in touch and
Sure,
then
sir.
be forward looking
Absolutely,
again.
sir. Absolutely. Definitely.
Right.
Yes.
Thank you.